Now we will look at some example of a digital system. We can observe that many things that are surrounding us, maybe our everyday technologies that we use, most of them are made up of a digital system, such as your computer. Your computer is a digital device, meaning when we talk about digital, it is important to understand they operate using the binary. Binary is nothing but the ones and the zeros. And also the smartphone, digital camera, the automatic teller machine or the ATM, routers and switches, and microcontroller. All of them are made up of a logic circuit. The important thing that you will realize that is common in most of these devices is known as a processor. So a processor is nothing but the brain of the system. Most of these systems they have a processor. A processor normally controls the entire operation of the system. Same as a human being, it has a brain. So the brain normally interact with different parts of the body in order to regulate a function. If you want to move your hand, the brain will tell you where to move your hand. Your hand cannot move by itself. In a digital system, example, we have the processor and we have some input device and the output device. And in order to store a memory inside this processor, you will come across the word RAM, which is the random access memory, or the ROM. So those two are the main memory of a processor. So let's briefly discuss some of these components in a digital system. For example, let us look at a computer. A computer have some input device such as the keyboard, and the processor is inside the computer, and some output devices like the monitor. So if you type something on the keyboard, it will be stored randomly in the random access memory, and then it will show up on the screen. And the information from the keyboard to the monitor are all in binary, same as your smartphone. If you see your smartphone, for example, the mic. So if you are talking to the phone, the mic will become the input, and you can have the speaker, which can act as the output. What about the camera? The camera, the image that is captured through the lens, can be the input, and the output will be displayed on the screen and at the same time can be stored on the SD card. So for the automatic teller machine, you have the keypad, which allow you to enter the amount that you want to withdraw, and the output will be the opening case, which open when you want to receive your money. And you have the router and the switches. So information that is coming from a wireless network can become the input, and the output can be the signal output from the transmitter of the router. So what is exactly a router? A router is similar to a modem. So what it does is that it only routes the signal. It does not do any important thing in a wireless communication. So imagine you have different access point, they will have access to this router. So information that is sent through the wireless network will be received by the router from the input receiver, and it will transmit the signal from the output of the antenna. And also you have the switches. So a switches is nothing but consist of port. It will have input port, and also it will have the output port. So a switch normally regulate only the transmission of information through a local area network. There are Cat5 cables that need to be connected to the switch. Imagine you have multiple computer. So you want to connect all these computer, like computer 1, computer 2, computer 3, computer 4 to a network. So imagine you have the router, and then you have the switch. So a switch have the capability to connect each of these computer together to a router, which is now connected to a network. So it is a bidirectional system in which it can transmit and receive information. So all of this can be regarded as a digital system because during the processing of the signal, they normally use binary. And finally, you have a microchip. So a microcontroller is a system that we will discuss later on in the course, and it will be used most of the time. So a microcontroller can be regarded as a computer on its own, and it has the processor plus a memory. Apart from a processor which has the RAM and the ROM as the main memory, in a microcontroller system, you have the processor plus the other thing is the memory. That means it can store a program. Since it will act as a computer, it will have external memory. So this memory is now the external memory of the system. So data between the processor and the memory, they are all in binary. Later on, if we look at how the microprocessor operate, we will also look at how binary information is transmitted. That means ones and zeros only. So you will see all of this example we use every now and then, but you don't realize that they normally operate using the two state. That means the binary state, zeros and the ones. Previously, we discussed some of the advantages of digital system over analog system, so you would be able to appreciate how those things operate. And we have many of these things that are available that you might come across. And in this course, you will be able to clearly appreciate why digital system is important to most of our electronic devices and most of the system that is around us. This will now bring us to another discussion based on the component of a digital system. That means I have mentioned few of them here. We have the component of a digital system. So we go step by step in understanding how those systems operate in general. So in our discussion for the component of a digital system, so we all know that a component of a system is the basic building blocks. Because of this component, there are this digital system that we have. Previously, we said something about how the system normally being derived, and we start from the electronic component to a device, and we have the system. So the different thing that differentiate this type of system is the digital. Therefore, the electronic component, which is the building blocks of a digital system, can be regarded as a digital component. And I mentioned previously that in terms of the component, we have the analog component and the digital component. However, if you see a digital component, they are mostly made from analog component. Analog component are component that deals with mostly analog signal. So analog signal, that means they are continue in nature. We have the amplitude, we have the time. This is a DC signal, and also we can have the AC signal with amplitude. And when we talk about a digital system, it deals with a digital signal. And we all know that digital signal is in terms of binary, it will have high and low. For example, 101, 001. So it is important that you understand what do we mean by the component. For example, the basic building blocks that we will be discussing is in terms of the digital component, we have the basic logic gates. This basic logic gate is the electronic component that make up a device. For example, a device, we have the RAM, which is the random access memory, or we can say the processor, or we can say the ROM, or we can say the LCD. They are all small devices that are made from basic logic gates. When you put them together, it forms a digital system. So what is a digital system? We have previously looked at examples such as the phones, the computer. They are all digital system. So if you go back to the beginning, that means those systems are derived from the electronic component, and those components are nothing but the logic gate. Now it introduces us to the first component of a digital system that we will be discussing is nothing but the logic gates. So logic gates, we have first the AND gate, B we can say the NOT gate, C we can say OR gate, D we can say the NAND gate, E we can say the NOR gate, and F we can say XOR gate. And this will be our first discussion of the component of a digital system. The second component that we will be looking at is the microprocessor and the microcontroller. Such system can be used to process information in a system. And thirdly, we will look at a memory unit and RAM, ROM, maybe flash memory. Those are some of the examples. Stores information in a system, and maybe we can look at some components such as a digital display, and 5 we can say the communication interface. Let me now briefly describe the function of each of these 5 components of a digital system in brief. So the first one is the basic logic gate. They can be regarded as the basic building blocks of a digital system. And secondly is the microprocessor and microcontroller. Their function is to process instruction. And memory unit, they are nothing but they store data. So information is stored as a data. And the digital display is example of a output device. So we can say it shows the output of a digital system. And when we talk about the communication interface, such as we have the Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth, they all can be regarded as a communication interface. They enable the data transfer from one system to another system. So these are the brief summary of the function of each of the component in a digital system. We will now look at what is a logic gate. So we will discuss few of them in details, and you will be able to appreciate how the digital system is a basic building blocks of a digital system.